Stevan Kosanovich was born in Plasky, Yugoslavia in 1919. Steven's father, Mirko, worked as a steel worker in Pittsburgh, while Steven lived with his mother, Maria, and his 5 brothers and sisters. He went to public school in Plasky and later traveled to Križački for high school. When the war started in 1941, he had been in the school for reserve officers in Maribor for 6 months. Where were you when the war started?
I was in Maribor, that's just on the frontier, 10 miles from the Austrian border. In that time, Austria was under the German occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war started, in that day when the war started, we took the special train and took us to Bosnia, the town of Travnik. In that city we supposed to take the units, mobilized units, but we didn't find out nobody, because nobody was.
The mobilized units weren't there?
Mobilized units didn't come, because mostly of the units supposed to be Muslim, and Muslims didn't come to the city.
So who was in the city? Were there any
In the
troops?
city was mayor of the city, but was the enemy of us. Already they formed different
Mm-hmm.
council, different people, different politics, totally contradictory to the existing condition. Yugoslavia was yesterday. Today already we have in the city some another power who are the enemy of us.
So what did your unit do when you were there?
We waited 4 or 5 days, and after that we finally saw that we have to confront somewhere Germans. And we confronted them in the city of Mrkonjić Grad, that's in Bosnia. And we marched, not expecting them, but we confronted suddenly about 3 o'clock afternoon. We confronted head to head with the marching or advancing tanks units, German tanks units. And they opened the fire, we dispersed to the forest, and from that place I gone to my place where I was born, that's in Plasky.
That was the end of your unit then?
That is the end of my war, regular war with Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my birthplace, Plasky, about 1 month. And after that, I escaped to Belgrade, to Serbia, from Croatia to Serbia.
What was Plasky like when you
Plasky
returned?
was occupied by the Italians, but the power was by the Ustashi.
Mm-hmm.
That's Croatian units, extremely nationalistic, inclined in that time already to genocide. And I escaped to Serbia.
Were there any victims in your hometown?
Yes, in that time already was killed about 10 people, well-known people in the city. And among them was one bishop.
What was his name?
The bishop Savo Trlajić. Savo Trlajić.
Mm-hmm.
And in Belgrade I had a sister, and I lived with her about 1 month. But the Communist Party, very interesting, know where I am and contacted me to make some diversion action. It means to shoot out some Germans on the street or cut the telephone line or electricity.
How did they contact you?
They contact me from my place already. They have some people who escaped before me or for surrounding place. And they hear from somebody. Although I registered in the city of Belgrade, and they probably some of them look at the names, and they contacted me, probably. And I saw that it's very dangerous, not for me only, but for the sister and the children. Because if I was captured by the Germans, they would right away trace to the house where I was staying. And I gone to the refugee camp about 30 miles far from Belgrade, the name Umka. And I was several days over there. And already another contact came to me. And finally I gone to the partisans units in the neighboring forest.
What did this contact tell you?
They contacted me around middle of the August. And they contacted me in the camp. And they took me to the forest. And in the forest I find out the first military units, partisans units.
Did you know where you were going when they led you into the forest?
Yes, I know. I know perfectly well because I was already in the youth organization, party youth organization before the war. And I approximately know what it's all about. Formed guerrilla units, and I know.
So what was your first role with this organization?
With this organization, my role was simple soldier. Later on, they saw me in the action, and they say, since I have some military schooling, they gave me first lowest military rank, platoon, squad, and after I was commander of the company. Company was 120 soldiers. And the chief of all several companies was around Belgrade, cycling the Belgrade. So-called Belgrade Posavian units. And the commander of all of these was Kocha Popovic. Today he's living in Belgrade. People's hero, that's the title they give him. And the biggest rank, general's rank. He's living now in Belgrade.
Did you ever meet him?
Yes, I met him twice. As a commander, he instructed me, when the winter coming, since we have not the big forest to hide in during the winter, that we eventually will go to Bosnia. The name of the forest is Romania. There's the big complex of the forest, and you can survive in that. But we didn't go to that route because Germans cut all routes in that direction and pushed us to the direction of Sanjak. And we, after several days fighting with the Germans, we finally come to Sanjak. The name of the city is Nova Varoš.
What was this fighting like with the Germans?
The Germans, actually, we didn't attack much then because we were in retreat. We defending just our retreat. That time, the Germans was much superior. They had the planes, they had tanks, and well-trained soldiers. And we didn't have even the power to take to the bigger battle or to develop the battle on the field. Just mostly retreat and fighting for retreating.
In your estimation, how effective were the partisans against the Germans? How effective was your war against the
In
Germans?
that time we were not much effective.
Mm-hmm.
We did the units by the numbers of hundreds, or 120 or 150, by my units. We just make the ambush and eventually attacked some isolated vehicle or some patrol or cut the electrical lines or telephone, but actual effective force we couldn't stand to the German superiority.
Mm-hmm.
We just make so-called diversion action. Cut on one place, run away from that place, cut another place, and so that we were not much effective.
Did your units engage any Chetnik units?
In that time, Chetniks was not in the beginning, um, till November. There was not any engagement against Germans, but in the November, when they broke relationship between Tito and Draža Mihailovich, we confronted some Chetniks in the forest. And there were some fightings, but not so, because we are still retreating.
Mm-hmm.
Retreating from the Serbia, retreating to another border. Because in that place where we crossed to Sanjak, to Nova Varoš, that is the Italian border, Italian occupation zone, and it was a different situation than in Germany. Italian was not much aggressive, and that was not much battle with the Italians.
So where did your unit end up?
I end up several days in Nova Varoš, and after that we get the order to go to capture one city called Sjenica. That is about 30 miles south of Nova Varoš. That city has approximately 3,000 Muslim militia who defending the city. We talked, have the conference, how to attack them, with what armaments, with what numbers, and we have several conferences, military conferences. We concluded that militia will not give any, they will not defend themselves, especially if it says with propaganda, we are not taking that one, we are the brothers, we are this and this. But when we attacked and we started going to the city, we find out a big battle. They defended themselves and we lose many people. In that conference was present later General Juric, later was Minister of the Interior Penesic, and the Chief of the Interior later on, Stepanovic. I remember that names. And above all of us was Milovan Djilas, Tito's deputy. Milovan Djilas. That's well-known name, who wrote the new class, who left Tito in 1953, and Tito sent him to jail for 9 years. He's still living and he's in Belgrade, well-known man.
Mm-hmm. How did the people in general treat the partisans?
In Serbia, in the beginning, they treated as brothers, as liberators, but when the partisans started killing the people for no reasons, and the people started to be against partisans, and mostly why we retreated from all Serbia, partisans, all partisans units retreated from Serbia because the people was against us. They didn't feed us, they betrayed us where we are, and we actually was surrounded with like that is not our country, it's enemy. because we make the gross mistake, killing the people with no any reason.
Why did the partisans treat them so cruelly?
Main purpose of the partisans, no liberation. Main purpose is partisans to create through the patriotic war, to create new society.
Communist state?
Communist society. And they know if they go directly with the we are want to communist and so the people would not accept that. But they are killing because they think when we come to the stage, when we have to actually formate that new society, we will have opponents. This one will be opponent, this one, and many people they were suspicious for anybody who are a little bit better off. He will be against us. That is in future, how they call it, class struggle. And it is better now to liquidate them than later on. And they paid for that because they were thrown away, not by the Germans so much as from the own people, from Serbia.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chetniks in that time get a prestige in Serbia and took many cities in Serbia.
During your retreat, you had stopped and had boarded up in a school
Oh yes.
for a number of days.
During the retreat we have many difficulties.
Mhm.
Some of and losing the people. Some of them happen in Selo Maidan, not far away from Milanovac. That is bigger district city. And we sleep it over the night in the school. In the morning, somebody told the Germans that we are in the school. It was big school. And in the morning, about 6, 7 o'clock, the plane started going over the school, low flying, and throwing away the bombs. In that time, I lose 15 people around me dead, and I get concussion, and I lose my hearing on one side.
On your right ear?
Pardon?
On your right ear.
On right ear, yes.
Yes.
And never hear anything anymore on the right side. That was in Maidan, not far away from Milanovac. And all retreat, when we retreating, we are gradually losing the people. So I come to Nova Varoš only with 80 people. From 140 people, I lose 60 people. And that retreat was 8 days.
Didn't you also get ill when you fell into a river?
Oh,
Can you tell
yes.
us about that?
When we lose Sjenica, we lose the battle in Sjenica.
Mm-hmm.
I try with retreating and militia advancing. I try to speed up my units, faster pace. And it has the small river and a very narrow bridge, and was on the ice. And the people start a little bit afraid, go slow, and I told them how to, was narrow river. And I told them, I showed him once how to stop on one and after jump over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed them once, was good. The second time I showed it to another echelon, and I fall down into the river. And it was temperature, minus 30. And I was all frozen, sick. The hospital is full in the Nova Varoš. And I have to sit in the house 2-3 days. They give me some sugar, some apples, bake that together, eat 2-3 days. And after, when I feel a little bit better, headquarters called me to go to follow my units. My units was already far away in Bosnia. They formed proletarian brigade with some other units. My commandant, Popovich already is the commandant. My unit's over there. But they give me the choice. They says like this one, Gilas. He says, you have the choice to go to Serbia and we wish you to go back to Serbia to rise against the people, against the Germany. I told them I am not born over there. I don't know the terrain, mentality, and I prefer that you send me to my own country, to Croatia, the province of Lika. He says, okay, I will give you permission to go to Bosnia, but I will not give you the permission to go all the way. And he gave me the permission to go to Bosnia, writing me the letter, 2 letters, to Tito, hoping that I will see Tito and give him that letters, and eventually Tito will take me to his units.
Who was this person again?
The person Gilas sent me.
Gilas.
Gilas, Milovan Gilas, well-known writer.
Mm-hmm.
He was Tito's deputy. And in Bosnia I never find Tito. Tito did march at far away. But in that time I have 2 soldiers who accompany me. But we confronted on our way one village where is the Muslims militia. And we have to pass through that village. But how I, as a Serb, to go through that village, that's very dangerous. 2 soldiers deserted me, left me, and gone to Montenegro. They are from Montenegro. And I was thinking, I say, the best way to try, because you have nothing to lose. If you lose the head here, or you will lose the head somewhere else, because it is losing so head like the flies. And I come to the first house and ask the name of the man who is in the charge of the village. And they told me the name. And they told me which house. And I gone to him directly and confronted him and says, I am going in front of big units, 5,000. If you don't allow me to pass, if I don't allow, if you do something to me, the units know and they will punish you. And he know probably for that because they know that's all around these partisans. And he preceded me safely from the village to the Serbian village. When I come to the Serbian village, very interesting. Serbian says, how you as a Serbs could pass through the Muslim? You must be Muslim. I say, I am not Muslim. I'm Serbian. And they ask me to read this, from Bible. To read this one, to this
Lord's
one.
Prayer.
Yes, prayer and this one. And finally, they find out one man who was, during the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, he was the gendarme on that village. And they remember that he mentioned the names the same as I mentioned. They called him to talk to me. And he talked to me and asked me, do I know from that village that and that man? And suddenly he asked me for name Sima Vesmar. He was his body in the gendarmes. He know he has not fingers. He asked me, what he's missing? What hands? I tell finger missing, but what hands? And said, how I could say, I just say, right hands. And he says, all right, give him 3, he told the people.
And
I
you
was
just guessed.
liberated. In that time I was liberated.
And you only guessed that it was his right
I
hand.
was just guess, because
You
I
didn't
know that name, actually the man existed.
Mm-hmm.
I know he has not finger, but who knows which hand? Because everybody in the village knows that man has not finger.
Did they hurt you in any way when they were?
Yes, they beat me terribly. They beat me and they already put a knife in from my throat and says, and finally I give him, in the end, I give him the letter, not the letter, that is the permission to travel by the deputy Gilas, you know, Tito's deputy Gilas. And when they read, they are Cyrillic letters. And they read that letters, the jail letter, Serb's letter. And they saw that and they say, sorry, sorry. They give me a little bit whiskey. Rakija, that's called Slivovich. And I went to they took me to the big city where the Chetniks has command. And I found out very rational man. He was talking to the people about how much bread have to be baked during the day. They have not much wheat. They will all burn it around. And in the end, I come to his table to talk to him. He asked me, do you want to stay with us? I says, it is very hard to stay with you because the partisans has the plan to take over that city where you are now. And if they find me with your units, they would brand that as the biggest enemy, or how do you could say, renegade.
Or traitor.
Or traitors,
Yes.
yes, traitors. And they would kill me, probably. And so I asked them, begged them to give me permission to proceed in the direction of different city, in the direction of my house, in the direction of my country. And they gave me the permission. I got another Chetniks units, bigger Chetniks units. And without any difficulties, they gave me the permission to go, to proceed to their territory freely. But that units took my rifle and pistols. They gave the rifle and pistol. They took me. So I was without any armament. And when I got to that, I got in the evening in one city called Rogatica in Bosnia. In one part of the city is Chetniks command, in the another part of the city is partisans command. In that time they didn't fought each other. They collaborated. And I asked in the Chetniks command, where is the partisans command? They showed me and so. When I come to the partisans units, partisans city, part of the city, they were already in the panic because they know the offensive is preparing, some Italian and Germans offensive from Sarajevo, and they are retreating in the forest. And I retreated together with them in the forest, Romania. That's named Pod Romania, one big city, Pod Romania.
So this German offensive, did you see any of the troops? Did you engage any of them?
No, I didn't engage it. Proletarian units neither engaged it. They escaped it. The Chetnik confronted that units because they stayed and they waited, and some partisans units waited. But in me, who gone to the forest of Romania, we didn't see the operation. We didn't see the German. We escaped it by that, escaping from place, and we escaped it. They didn't catch us.
Just going back a little bit, you had 2 letters to Tito that
Yes.
you carried.
Yes,
Did you ever have an occasion to read them?
Yes. They told me instruction in the case that I have to be captured or something, the best way to open the letter and read and give Titus orally what is all in the letters. And I find in the letters not so pleasant subjects about killing some functionary who didn't perform it satisfactory. Some officers was killed, 2-3 of them. And they have description of the situation in that territory, Sanjak territory, and the future work what he has in the perspective in that territory. And he indicated that he will form larger units and capture some cities from Chetniks. And I throw away that letters, 2 letters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And after that, from Romania, I gone in the direction of the name big industrial city Zenica. In that was already 1 battalion units, and I have the letter from headquarters, and they prepared 3 days to take me over river Bosnia, named Bosnia River. And I passed through that and took about 40 miles through the forest without anybody and come to the camp where is the mostly sick people or wounded. And I sleep over the night and prolong it in the direction of furthermore to Lika, to Croatia. That time the commander of the camp was one doctor. He didn't believe that 1 man can come through the forest. Lots of wolves around, without that I have no any armaments and so. And he wrote a letter to the next units to watch me. And finally they come, when I come to Krajina, I met well-known writer, Branko Ćopić, and he know me well. He was in the school of the officers, reserve officers with me, and I was 3 days with him. And he introduced me to commander of all this Krajina, the general, later on general, Kosanovich, well-known general, Tito's general Kosanovich.
Mm-hmm.
I met Dr. Stojanović, Mladen Stojanović, and the political chief for all that Krajina was Đuro Pucar and Veljko Stojnić. Beside them, I met one freshly newcomer, doctors Moslems, Osman Karabegović. He came from prison from Banja Luka, that's headquarters from the Ustaš district. He came with Lady Perović. That later Perović would be wife of Koča Popović.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked together, and they throw away the doubt about me, who I am, because Ćopić, that writer, well-known writer, introduced me and told them that who I am and so. And after that they gave me 2 soldiers to accompany me and to take me the road around the big city, Bihać, in Bosnia, to take me to the first units from my district. And they took us about 10 hours walking.
Where was this?
That was Donji Lapac.
Donji Lapac.
Donji Lapac. In Donji Lapac, the selo, some small village, Nebljus, I met Stojan Matić. That's the active officers who preparing the action to capture from Italian the city of Donji Lapac. I stayed with him 2 days, and he gave me 1 soldier to go in the direction of the headquarters for Croatia. Partisans headquarters, Croatia. And I got over there, met people I never saw him.
This headquarters for
For
Croatia.
partisans, Croatia. headquarters,
Was that in the
Croatia.
same city?
That is in Korenica.
In Korenica. How long did it
Korenica,
take you to get there?
I gone over there and I look at, because on my permit, on one place is the 5-star and Gila's signature, and another is Chetnik's sign. And they were looking at me, doubtful, and I asked, I saw they are fighting with themselves, who they are. Because one man before the night come, and they killed him, because that was the Draža Mikhailovich courier, one officer, who's supposed to organize Chetniks in Lika. And he thinks that I am part of that enterprise. And I asked for the men I know, and they know me, and big members of the party. Jakov Blažević, I asked for Mile Počuča. They are member of the Central Committee, and they know me, and I know them. We worked together before the war. And they say this and this. But in the evening, in order to be sure that I am not, they asked me to take the speech to the people in the city and talk about Draža Mihailović, betrayal of Draža Mihailović, and Milan Nedić, the new formed government in Serbia under the German occupation. And they would, through my speech to the people, recognize, do I know the party lie? And I know when I went to that village and opened the speech, I saw some face, not villagers. They're well dressed, and they are different. And I assuming they are members of the party, probably bigger ranks. And they're listening. And I was talking, and always in the line of the party. And I was very careful not to go astray from the line. The Lenin's party is divided, is defined. The policy the party pursuing in that moment, in that period of time. That's the party line.
Mm-hmm.
For example, party line, what is your relationship with that events, on that events, on that events? You characterize that by the point of party, and you put that in the writing, and all members of the party have to know that you have already answered for any questions what are developing around you, any events. For any events you have already answered. And that answer is unfortunately uniformed. And that's the characteristic of the line. That is the line. If you go left of the line, they call it you are the extremist. Or right of the line, you are divisionist. Divisionist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they give me permission. The next day I gone to the another units closer to my house. And
so your speech was right on the line.
Yeah, I speak right on the line so that I prove that I'm a member of the party.
Was it difficult?
It was not difficult because I saw with my eyes. I saw many conferences during the going through the all headquarters of that districts, different districts. And I talked to the people. And I saw what they are talking. I read the material, party materials. And I know approximately the same line as they are.
Did you believe that line?
No, I didn't believe. I started doubting when I saw they are starting to killing that people, no innocent people. They are not motivated by patriotic motives. They are just to grab the power in the extraordinarily unpleasant conditions. You imagine this one. You have the country occupied by 6 different enemies occupied. The genocide is proceeding in Croatia against the Serbs. And in that time, you're killing the people because they don't obey your line or your way of singing. That is inhuman. And I saw that all the banners, decorative banners, liberation, and this one was nothing else than to kill the people and proceed to use all that unpleasant circumstances to create your power. That a little bit awakened me. But I was careful not to expose my feeling, because the head go very easy who is the member of the party, and I was member of the party.
So once you convinced them that you were a member of the party, what happened next?
When I convinced them with that one, and later when I come to my district, they know me already as a member of the party, because I find out the people who were in the same cells with me. And right away I get a secretarial job. The secretary, that's not secretary to write, the secretary of the party. Military unit secretary of the party. And with that one I start to be later on commissar, battalion, and group of the battalions. But in the end, I was under my command, political command was 9 battalions. That's about 2,500 till 3,000 people when I left the partisans. That I left 1944 in May. That's already, everybody know Tito's winning. But I was in that position that I had to leave the party, leave the partisans. Because during that period of time, it's happened in that terrain, Cordon, where you have now fighting. Nowadays you have fighting now between Serbs and Croatians on that territory. In that time, we got the instruction 1943 in April, and they say instruction from the headquarters, not military, party headquarters, central committee. They say, since the England and America don't help us, they speculating, they don't opening the second front. They collaborating with the Yugoslavian government in London, because you have the Yugoslavian government in London, escaped from Germany. If they are deciding to come to Yugoslavia over Adriatic coast, we will throw away them. We will open the fire on them. If we need ammunition, we will ask Germans. And I come to think, and many of us start to think, how, for God's sake, you are hardly waiting, and that people exhausted, totally waiting liberation, and suddenly you're liberated, throw away in the sea back. And not only that, but how you will ask from the Germans ammunition. But something happened that's stupid in all our thinking, that was the stupid instruction. But we did know something was not stupid. We did know that secretly in that time Tito has the delegation and talking with the Germans. They will not fight each other, Tito asked the Germans. We will not fight each other. Give us the time, not attack us. We will liquidate all Chetniks, because Chetniks is our main enemy, not you. And that is all in history, well known now. That in March 1943, the biggest and the most news come 1948. They recovered that from the act, from the documents, German documents, what Tito said, delegation said, what the Germans said. The German generals agree with Tito, but Hitler refused it. And that collaboration between them lasted about 3 weeks. In that time, when they are retreating, when they are talking secretly in Zagreb, we didn't know All during the war we didn't know. But we know that the directives is stupid, not proper, and not good, not patriotic. And we tried organize in our units the people who with the same rank as I or lower ranks. We tried to probably to organize our people who are for autonomy of Serbia and Croatia. We talked, you probably talked with Joce Remic. He probably mentioned you that he was one of members of us. We tried to organize in the partisans Croatia to separate not the units, the territory, because it was happening big genocide, and it is very hard to put the people back together.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked that from the headquarters. We talked to the man who was responsible to organization, civilian organization, that was named Moshe Piade. And he come to the headquarters to Tito and asked them that. And Gilas and Rankovic refused it. They didn't even talk to his map. He already drafted the map. How to like the autonomy. Autonomy by the Croatia. Croatia would be state. This is autonomy in Croatia. And they refused that. But somehow they know gradually that in Kordun, where I was commissar for all Kordun, where Remic was commandant for the all units, not operative units, the units in the behind the line. We keep the contact among us. We talk to the people freely, not with the party line. And they saw that we have the function and not talking with the party line. They already branded us as enemy. And they organized military court and put some people to death. About 10 people died, killed, and I escaped. I was in the army, took some units and escaped. They called me before they formed the court. They called me by the telephone, and in that time I was engaged in the action against the Germans. Big fight was. And I was leading that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me once, they called me twice. I says, tomorrow will be operation over, and I will come. And I, in the meantime, sent one officer to see down what they are all about, why they calling me so much. And they told me all story. They are very interested. You are very interested for them because they are forming the court and they will take some people, the firing squad probably. And I took the one unit escaped. I know probably they would kill me. When I come, we formed some Chetniks units that we didn't call it Chetniks, we call it some different name. And we find out some already existing, and we waited 2-3 months in the forest near Otočac. And the big Chetniks units, the Dinarska Divizija, Dinaric divisions, was retreating, and we chose to go to Slovenia because the big partisans units was all around and we could not stay longer on that territory. We retreated to Slovenia. Slovenia, that is 200 kilometers from the place where I was. And we waited. In Slovenia we was 4 or 5 months. May 1st, we crossed Yugoslavian-Italian border on Socha River. The name of the city is Gorizia. And in Italian territory, we were first on the Palma Nova. They took all armaments from us in Palma Nova. We gone to Cesana, another camp. We were about 6 months in Cesana, and after they sent us to Eboli. It was military camp, was about 20,000-30,000 people, with civilian and military.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, when I was in Italy, in that camp you can go freely to any place in Italy. You have uniform, military uniform, British. They give you the second hands. Some get the first hand, but some second. You can go freely to all, but only supply that you can only eat and sleep over there. And we live it over there in Italy, Eboli. We live it about a year and a half, and we come to Germany. In Germany, when we come, they come classifying people. That's Münsterlager. Probably you hear that somebody told you, Münsterlager.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that units from Italy, they come over there and they classify the people who are free and the people from the list that Tito asked as a war criminals. He could tell us all for war criminals because he's the victorious.
Mm-hmm.
And any defeated in the civil war, any defeated is a criminal for them, for the victor. And they find out from 30,000, about 60 people to special interrogation and eventually to send them to Yugoslavia. But they didn't send nobody because they didn't find out any. Among them was one lady, doctor. She's now a doctor in the United States. And that lady, they call it her lady, she was saving the children and young people in the camp, saving their lives, and they proclaimed her as war criminal. And they laugh at, the British Commission laugh at them. They leave it everybody free. They're all in the United States, some is in Canada, some is in Australia, some in England, and many die.
When did you leave Germany?
In Germany I lived 1948 and gone to England.
Mm-hmm.
In England I worked at first in the quarry, and after some clerical job in the welfare office or labor office, they call it the Ministry of Labor.
Mm-hmm.
That is like here unemployment office. And after I had brother in Canada, they asked me to come here, and I had already correspondence with Peter Bullard. He was well known in Windsor, merchants,
Mm-hmm.
rich. He asked also to come to Canada. And I come to Windsor, 1950. I was in Windsor from 1950 to 53 and married the girls from United States, and I moved to Milwaukee. And my child was born in Milwaukee. And from Milwaukee I come to Detroit back. So I was many friends here in Windsor in Canada. And first years in the United States I was more in Canada than in the United States. After work I come here, stayed 1 day, 2, and again and so.
And how did you like Canada?
Canada was much more organized than Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Canada was but in that time, 1950, was not much work. It is very hard. Some of my friends gone to pick up tobacco, some gone on the sugar beet. But I waited a little bit and get a job in small factory on Walker Road. I don't know, you know Walker Road. That was McCord Corporation. That's American factory corporation, but American, but the factory here building the radiators.
Mm-hmm.
That is that is not just near Sandwich. I don't know the district, how you divide the district, but Walker Road, you know Walker Road.
Yeah, and you worked there for
Yeah,
a number of years.
yeah. And that is not anymore McCord Corporation.
Mm.
I worked 1 year I think, in Mark Corporation. And Jefferson. Jefferson was for the body, Ford body, Ford car body. That was the small, not a small shop, but a substitute from Ford, for Ford. They built it somewhere and I worked 4 or 5 months, get laid up.
But compared to Europe.
Compared to Europe, Europe was so ruined during the war.
Mm-hmm.
Italy was so ruined and so poverty in Italy in that time. I thought it would take 100 years till they built up, but I was surprised they built up so fast and so good in Italy. They have very nice soil and a very industrious people in Italy. Very industrious people. And good nature. Germany was all ruined, all biggest city was ruined, and I was surprised they are built so much, but thanks to American capital probably, the Marshall Plan and so.
Mm-hmm.
They built that, the same as they built back in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
What they say is that critics of American policy, they say, wave of Pacific took our richness to them. A wave of Atlantic took also. You know, the rearmament of the Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Big help for Japan. And the critics of American policy would say, wave of Pacific and wave of Atlantic took our richness. We are not anymore on the zenith of our power.
Mm-hmm.
But this is specific society, liberal economy, and through that, free, liberal economy, they allow everything, don't considering for the ecology, for anything. Before, they didn't even mention ecology. They build the airport near the schools, they build this one, they discharging the hazardous material in the rivers. Nobody paid attention before.
Well, that's for another videotape some other time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on that note,
That is the difference.
we'll have to end this one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. In 1953, Mr. Kosanovich married, and he and his wife Radmila had 3 children, Mariana, Maria, and Michelle. Upon arriving in Windsor, he worked at the McCord Radiator Company until moving to the United States. He worked 17 years in the lab at Twin Pines before moving to General Motors as a chemical engineer. Mr. Kosanovich remarried in 1981 to his wife Lillian and retired from General Motors in 1984. He has been a member of Ravanicha in Detroit for 20 years and is currently living in Livonia, Michigan.
Amo,